Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. Today we are presenting enhancing Civil 3D for the Australian civil engineer. My name is Ben Hipsley. I manage the Civil Survey Solutions business. Today we are presenting our webinar alongside our sister company in Civil Survey Applications, and we'll be hearing from Jonathan Taylor, who I will introduce to you shortly. Civil Survey Applications is a sister company of Civil Survey Solutions and are directly responsible for the development of tools such as Civil Site Design, Stringer Topo, and Corridor Easy. For those of you who are not aware, these tools are operated on top of an underlying CAD system, the most robust being Civil 3D. The software has a long history in Australia, dating back over 20 years, and is solely developed here in Australia as well, primarily from our headquarters here in Melbourne. So I would now like to introduce you to Jonathan Taylor, who is our product manager and senior application engineer for Civil Site Design. Jonathan has spent over 2 decades in the industry and has spent a long time working alongside our development team and also training and developing users of the software. So we're lucky enough to be hearing from him today, and I will now hand over to Jonathan.
Today, we're going to be talking about Civil Site Design on Civil 3D. And I guess the key thing about this webinar is the majority of this content is intended for people that have never seen Civil Site Design before. So I do appreciate that we have people here that they're attending who have used Civil Site Design, but the majority of this content is about what Civil Site Design can do to improve Civil 3D. Originally, Civil Site Design, or it was called Advanced Road Design when it was first launched, was developed predominantly to actually operate on top of Civil 3D. And that was due to the fact that Civil 3D's toolset wasn't particularly good. And I'm not just saying that either. I mean, I'm someone that's worked on land development desktop 25 years ago and then moved on to what was called Civil 3D when they first launched it in 2005 and quickly moved off it again. But coming back to Australia, Civil 3D has begun to take on more prominence. Now, our tool set still applies. Okay, so what we offer is basically, as I put there, an improvement to the workflow and the design inside Civil 3D. So you can still use Civil 3D as you would do natively, but what we are offering is an improved tool set to improve efficiency and ultimately productivity with the software. However, what we also want to get across is the fact that we complement Civil 3D. So we have a range of tools that will exchange back. So, for example, we'll develop models which will generate a surface, and we can share those back to Civil 3D. We can generate feature lines, profiles, profile views, a corridor, if you're that way inclined, and pipe networks. Now, some of these things you're going to see today, not all of them, because we have got very, very limited amount of time. Once I've done this PowerPoint, it's going to be a whistle-stop tour. Think of it as almost like the greatest hits of Civil Site Design with Civil 3D, okay? This slide isn't intended to confuse. There's a lot of information going on here, but what I've tried to do is develop a slide to indicate how the core of Civil Site Design fits into your workflow with Civil 3D. Essentially, at no point do you ever need to stop using Civil 3D, but if you wanted to, you actually can do. You can actually get to a point here where you can develop Civil 3D Cogo points or work with Cogo points, surfaces, alignments, and then you can pretty much just continually work with Civil Site Design for the purposes of delivering whatever it happens to be. You might be delivering drawings, models, etc. However, we're not intended to be a replacement. As I said, we're intended to be like a companion. So the idea is that with all of your design and all of the extra tools and functions that we offer that Civil 3D doesn't, you're then able to generate, as I said, Civil 3D profiles, profile views. You're able to generate a corridor, a Civil 3D corridor from your string design, which in turn also will have built for you. It will create the assemblies and sub-assemblies for you, including pipe networks. So you can use Civil Site Design for your pipe network design, your analysis, and then output profile views of your pipe networks and also your structures and pipes and structures, in the drawing. So this is just a very broad brush kind of picture as the type of things that we can do with the software, but this is how it integrates with Civil 3D. Some of these things you'll see, but due to the time frame we've got, this is very much the sort of a greatest hits or sort of taster session of some of what we can do to improve your Civil 3D workflow. Now, when it comes to key features, I've actually got quite a few here to go through, but some of them will be quick, some of them not so quick, because they require a little bit more attention. Just going on to our tool space here, we have a tool space in Civil Site Design, okay? And that tool space was released, what was it, 2024? So last year, April last year. This was a game changer for particularly new users that haven't seen the software before. A really good way of being able to operate the software, elements-based access to anything that you create, surfaces, strings, templates, surfaces, again, models. Anything you create, by and large, within civil site design is now located in this environment. And I'll be using this all the way through, predominantly, apart from the pipes, predominantly through this particular webinar today to show you how easy it is to operate and find and begin to manage your design. Very quick point, templates. These replace your assemblies. So you can build a template library that can be very easily put together. You can share this with your teammates or within an organization. But these allow you to not only form very quick shape, but then you've got the application of subgrade or materials underneath for the purposes of volumes, which you will see today. And by the way, if you are a civil site design user, you are going to be basically getting a sneak preview of 25.1, which is due out probably in the next week or two. And some of the new features which have gone into that, including a brand new sectional volumes tool, you'll actually get to see, which is kind of a bonus. Artificial intelligence is also part of civil site design. You're actually going to see me use this first one. This is called Project Assist. So this was a module that was developed a couple of years ago, just to sort of dip our toe, as it were, into the use of AI with software, with civil design software. You'll get to see this in action. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it here because it's pretty meaningless without a demonstration. But also developed on V25, we've now got the option to use custom chat GPTs to develop what we call scripts for advanced cross-section editing. For those of you that know what civil site design is, we have something called design variations, and in V25, we added what we call custom variations. So customers can develop their own variations, and you can actually use a custom chat GPT to help you develop them. So AI is now becoming a significant part, and my understanding is, will also become a significant part of the software. Now, one of the big components of our software is the vertical grading editor. We undertook a user feedback survey a couple of years ago now, and one of the main responses we got back as to what was the top feature was this feature, which is the vertical grading editor. So our customers tell us that this feature is one of the key features. The good thing about this is that we can basically apply speed table assessments. Off-road speed tables can be applied in the background with this. Whole ton of editing tools for IP-based vertical design. We have something called design constraints. Again, I'm going to show you this sort of in action, but critically, we can send these profiles out, or these vertical designs for our strings, out as civil 3D profiles. And crucially, we can edit those civil 3D profiles and pass it back to civil site design or vice versa. So a crucial part of this is that we're not just restricting the design to us. You can create civil 3D profiles with it. We also have advanced cross-section editing. So this goes on to something I mentioned earlier about the design variations. So we can do a lot of advanced cross-section editing, which takes you outside of the box of just simply applying a template and having to apply, even with civil 3D, different sub-assembly pieces. With the version that came out in version 25 in May this year, we're able to now start to put on bits of conditional design or even form a layback just with the standard core set of tools now. And I'll show you the layback option a little bit later on. Model viewer. So you can see this is a whistle-stop tour of all the different things the software can do. There is a lot, and I'm scraping the surface even with model viewer, the capacity of what we can do in here. Predominantly, I would say this is the design aid first to help you with your design, as we're going to be seeing very shortly. But also, it's got surface visualization. We can show analysis. All those things that I've put on that list and more are available as part of Model Viewer. It's just a couple of examples of customer Model Viewer projects. Okay, so this is using Model Viewer out of the box. This is not using any particularly special rendering program or anything like that. This is just using native civil site design. A couple of projects where the customer has used it for either reconstruction, or they've used it for, in this case, lot design. So Model Viewer, very, very important. In the theme of visualization, we've also got Subgrade Modelling. Really, really good piece of kit, this, because this is essentially going to give you a surface of the underside of your design, essentially giving you a surface through any materials you have specified on your strings and generating that for you for the purposes of, say, bulk earthworks. And obviously, crucially, with any of what we're doing here, we can pass this over to Civil 3D. And I guess really that kind of, I thought it was going to be the slide next. It isn't. One last thing, the pipes. I had a conversation with a prospect last week who was talking about how they're interested in looking at the pipes module for civil site design to work on top of Civil 3D. And yes, you can use our pipes module straight on top of Civil 3D surfaces, but crucially, you can also use it with our string design, which means as you make changes to your strings, i.e. your roads, footpaths, whatever it happens to be, the software will respond to those design changes. As you can see here, we're actually using the model viewer for the pipes. Got to stop doing that because it changes the graphic. We're using it for the pipes, and this is an example of the vertical design, which actually shows you the crossing pipes, amongst other things. So the pipes alone, I could spend an hour showing you the pipes, which is the drainage, sewer, and services. But for the purposes of what I'm going to show you today, I'm just going to just build up something nice and quick and then export it off to Civil 3D. This was the slide I thought I was going to get next. So this was the slide which was to basically say, hey, look, we can build this content for you very, very quickly. I can guarantee you it's a lot quicker than doing it with native Civil 3D. Nothing wrong with those tools, but the process of building and putting things together is quite difficult, I would say. And that's my experience. But crucially, we can pass this information back to Civil 3D. We can create Civil 3D surfaces. We can create COGO points, Civil 3D COGO points for set out. Profiles, as I've mentioned here at the bottom, this is actually a sneak preview of a slightly different ribbon that we'll be getting in version 25.1. Profile views, corridors, drainage networks, they can all be basically synced back. So we're not excluding Civil 3D. We're not cutting a point and making drawing a line in the sand and saying, hey, this is it. Okay, you use us, you can. But as far as we're concerned, we want to have that full round trip. So let's head into the software. I'm going to kill my video now. And there we go. Right. So we're going to start off just very quickly by just reviewing what's in this, well, essentially what's in Civil 3D. Civil site design includes a number of different ribbon tabs. You can see them at the top here. Now, by and large, I won't be using many of them because most of what I can do now is through this environment here, which is the Toolspace. We are going to just make sure you can see here that we have a Civil 3D surface already created. So we pretty much just say to you, hey, if you've got a Civil 3D surface, maybe it's a point cloud surface, it's come from Recap, you've brought it into Civil 3D, you want to start designing on top of that, we will basically read that surface for you. We also get to build Civil 3D alignments. The alignment module for Civil 3D is excellent. Okay, the geometry editing, annotation, labeling is actually very, very good. So we anchor onto the top of those. So to save time in this presentation, I've already got those created. We don't want to be sitting here creating alignments for the duration. It also helps me with something I'm going to be running very, very shortly. Now, I'm going to close this down because really, other than looking at some content later on, I don't need to see it. What I'm going to just highlight is the Civil Site Design Toolspace. Now, this Civil Site Design Toolspace gets initialized when you start the project and you basically you start a Civil Site Design command. What is listed in here is anything that either you can use to create or items that you create later on. So we actually replicate your Civil 3D alignment list, because ultimately we can work with these alignments. We can build on top of them. So if you wanted to build, for example, a road on top of this Civil 3D alignment, we offer you that particular option. Now we'll get into what else is in this tool space a little bit later on, but I just want to make mention of templates, and the reason why is because this is a bit chicken and egg. I'm going to be showing a function in a minute called Project Assist, where I have to pick templates, and it'd be worth you guys seeing them beforehand, so it builds a bit of context. Well, you can already see that as I'm hovering over the tool space here, this is basically giving me a preview of any templates that we have available to us in this project. I'm just going to very quickly open up the template editor here, just to show you the template editor itself. This is the template editor where we can create templates from scratch, manage templates, or copy versions of for other parts of our project. Every template is made up of what we call a code, and these codes are important because we can use these codes later on for the purposes of Subgrade and cross-section editing. So I can tell this code later on maybe to match to a surface or follow a polyline or match to an alignment. If I right-click, I'm given some options. I can go in and apply different materials. This is really crucial because ultimately this can give me a subgrade surface later on through our Subgrade Model Manager. And as you'll see very shortly, the new section volumes form that we've got will also be able to provide us with these values sectionally as we're going through our design. So these templates can be applied anywhere in the job. They can be edited at any point. I can also share these templates. We've got a really neat little system here called packing where I can just basically zip all the templates in the job, pass them to somebody else, and they can import them. For time, I'm not going into this. Obviously, I've got very limited amount of time. I won't be able to obviously show you template creation. But what I'm going to do is now apply those templates as what we call strings in civil site design over the top of part of this design. And really, for those of you that haven't heard the term string before, what you're going to see in a minute essentially is a string is essentially a corridor with everything kind of, and the profile and the section views all kind of bundled into the one object, and it's incredibly quick and nimble to work with. So if you see or see, for example, over here where I've got strings, we're only really going to be relating to a few of those, but essentially these are our replacement for things like the corridor. Now, we're going to be running this button down here, Project Assist. So Project Assist is an AI-driven, put it this way, it'll help you build your project. What has just happened, the software has just read all of the alignments that I've created in the project. And this is another good reason why I've already created them. And based on their geometry and the naming that I have used, it will learn from me what type of string, or not necessarily what type of string, but what type of control to put on top of that alignment. So you can see here road 1, it's seen the fact that I've called it road 1. It is assumed that that is going to be a road string. Quite right. Now, if some of these aren't quite right, I teach the AI by changing it and tell it, well, actually, that's not going to become a road. That's going to be, I don't know, it could be something else, footpath control, for whatever strange reason I might do that. But importantly, it's learning from me. So every time I start a job or work within a job, it's going to try and present to me the best option. I'm going to click on confirm. Now, everything I'm doing here can be undertaken manually by you as the user. And many people, many users of civil site design would do what this is just about to do in a matter of, say, 30 seconds. They would do piece by piece, which is perfectly acceptable. And most users, we would expect to do that initially to understand how this is working. This workflow form, which I'm not going to sit here and go through every single item, is essentially saying, look, there's a civil 3D alignment here. We've set it to road. What template would you like from your list to apply? And it will go ahead and build that string for me. We've got another one here that looks like it's called a curb return. Oh, that looks like it should be a curb return. Now, to save a bit of time here, what I've done is I've already filled this in using a workflow. Now, this workflow, if I go open workflow, essentially it's a saved copy. It's a saved copy of this form. Okay, so I'm going to just come in here and go open. I would have spent maybe, 2 minutes putting this together. So as far as time goes, there's 2 minutes less, 2 minutes less on the webinar. So I've already filled it in. So I can go through this form, check how the alignments are all being assigned. And at the very bottom here, I decide, well, look, if there's any curb returns that need to be applied between intersecting roads, make those 8.5. This is our new intersection manager, by the way. I am going to highlight it. It's in version 25.1, just about to be released. When you create an intersection now with civil site design, before you even build the curb returns, you can actually begin to analyze and see how that intersection will be formed. You can do all sorts of things with regards to removing parts of the through codes, etc. A lot of good things. I haven't got time, unfortunately, to show you what this does, but essentially this is something that we'll be adding into v25.1. I'm going to click on compute. And what's going to happen is the software is going to go ahead, look at all the templates that I've assigned and apply them through the medium of a string onto, as you can see what it's doing there, onto the road. Now, great thing is, in a minute, you'll actually see the curb returns with an 8.5 meter radius also being applied. Now, this isn't meant to be sort of a smoke and mirrors exercise. I'm not doing any kind of under the hood sort of work here. This is everything you can see here I would have done using the tool set that civil site design has, I'm now just fast tracking the process. Ultimately, what we're saying here is, hey, let civil site design build the framework of your job. I'm going to close that down. Let it build these elements for you so you can then focus on designing them. Okay, I haven't got to sit here, particularly with Civil 3D. Kerb returns were one of the things that turned me off and turned me back on to civil site design at the time. Just having those Kerb returns built in a way where I can start to review the vertical design and edit them was absolute gold at the particular time. Now, I'm just going to do something very quickly. I'm going to head to Model Viewer. Now, I should have done this probably at the start, but the Model Viewer, which I kind of highlighted in that first slide, sorry, one of the slides with the key features, what this is giving me is a visualization and at the same time giving me real-time design of my project. So I'm looking at my Civil 3D surface here. If I go back to Toggle Display, I'm going to go to Contours. I'm going to just turn some things on. So as far as Model Viewer goes, at its most basic level, all I need to do in this environment is just turn things on and off. I'm just going to go in and turn on some strings, some contours, and the model that the software has built for me, which I can edit. Let's go and turn this on now. So again, no vertical design, no cross-section editing. It's simply just applied the templates to my design with the controls that I nominated and applied that in the project. So this is now what I'm seeing. Really good environment, really easy to access. I can screenshot some of this if I want to. There are some excellent output tools where we can output videos, AVI files, etc. Even output this as an OBJ file for other programs for if you want to do some enhanced rendering and animation, twin motion and so forth. So Model Viewer straight away gives me some context. One thing I'm actually going to do, and I hadn't written this in my notes, was just the fact that I might just change the drawing in the background, sorry, the grass that we're using, and I'm just going to just drape this aerial image. This is a high-res image. I can apply and click OK. So once that's applied that imagery, you can see here, really, really good way of being able to just quickly see your design. I'm actually going to turn the aerial image off in this particular instance, just because we don't really need to see it right now. I probably should have done that at the start, but anyway. Okay, so the software's gone ahead. It's built for us content. All of that content is now listed in this tool space. So you can actually see here, these Civil 3D alignments now have green ticks. These tell me that they've been used by civil site design. Okay, if I head to the templates, you can also see there is that template being applied. I know it's got a green tick. There are others as I scroll further down. Here we go. So these templates that, again, I already created these templates. They happen to be in my standard library. They are also being applied in this project. Now, when it comes to editing these strings, what I'm going to do is now show you the vertical design. Okay, and I'm just going to minimize the tool space here just to show you how quickly you can do this. So if you're an existing civil site design user and you haven't used Toolspace, this really, honestly, is a game changer. I know everyone's got a habitual kind of route of going VG, there it is. Try this instead. So if we open up Islet Street, in fact, let's go row 2, because I think row 2 is pretty horrendous in respect to its vertical design. Vertical grading editor, straight in. Row 2, right click. I can access a multitude of different tools in here, including plotting, which is something we'll do later. So the vertical grading editor, if you haven't seen it before, is essentially a live profile editor with quite a lot of really good tools that you can use to change a vertical design. So it's an IP-based design. Should get that off the bat, first of all. We've got a little button down here, which is to toggle on fast mode. So this means that as I'm making edits, what normally happens is the software just updates everything for me as I'm making design changes. I'm going to turn that off. The updates will happen when I close. So I'm going to just use some of these tools in here to delete IPs. As you can see here, very quickly able to go in and delete. I've also got a grid editor, so a grid view of this design. And by the way, when I say design, all the software has done here is when I have built the string, it puts a profile of best fit over the surface, which I chose to reference in the background for the batters. Okay, so don't think there's generative design happening here. There isn't yet. But this at the moment is just simply a best fit, which you can choose to get rid of entirely. We have a delete all button that will get rid of it. or I can just choose to sort of work with this and manage it as best I can. So we've got the option to add IPs, use the grid editor, edit IPs outside of the grid editor. We've actually got a really lovely contextual editor, which is when I click near an IP, I can actually do things like match the surface or delete. One of the most beneficial tools in here, which got added in probably about 4 or 5 years ago, it seems like 5 minutes ago, but it wasn't, edit by range. So if you decide, well, look, you've got 3 kilometers of road, or, even if you've got 500 meters of road, you can come in here and say, look, between, say, chainage 100 and, say, chainage 260, which is down here to down here, I'd like to delete all the IPs. And we're going to delete. And yes. Really good tool. Okay. Now, one thing you may notice here is that the software is actually flagging to us where it's intersecting other roads. I'm just going to pop in a vertical curve here, because let's face it, a lot of cut here, that would be abysmal. That's a rather large vertical curve there, but anyway, that will work. You'll notice that we've got road 3 sitting there. And the way that this works is if I just turn fast mode on and rebuild, this is completely dynamic. This was, as I said, this was game changing for me when I was using, at the time, just using Civil 3D. If you have multiple roads connected to each other, they all interact. So if I open up the vertical grading for road 3 here, road 3, as you would want it to, connects onto road 2, which is this spot here. So this is the center line of road 2 where we were a second ago. Watch what happens as I move the design. It's quick. It's so quick you probably didn't even see it happen. I'm going to just put this into fill. There we go. These two are linked and connected, which means I can then form intersections and curb returns. Now, one of the things with, I'm just going to delete some of these IPs just to clean it up a fraction more. There we go. One of the things about the vertical design is, yes, there's a whole range of tools that we can talk about in respect of design, but crucially, I can create Civil 3D profiles immediately. Okay, so I could have created them as soon as I'd created my strings. I could have gone ahead and built Civil 3D profiles. The reason for this is, I'll show you. So if we go road strings, create, update, Civil 3D profiles, what we do is we get you to choose your Civil 3D profile view styles. So styles here, the label sets, etc. We then assign those to profile views of whatever string you want to present in the drawing. So I'm just going to go here and grab road 1, 2, and 3. In fact, I'll grab Islet Street as well. It's going to be using the predefined settings that I've assigned at the top here. I'm going to click on this little picker tool to set a location for where I want these and create update views. So that's using my default styles. Okay, you may have yours. Software will do the same thing. The great thing is with these is, yes, you can do whatever you want. If you decide that you're looking to obviously plot these off, you can do, but they're entirely dynamic, which means if I continue to make changes to the design, such as, where are we here? We are on road 2, yep. Obviously, the scaling looks slightly different. But if I decide that I do want to make a design change here and move this down considerably, once I've done that, I can then go and basically pass this back to Civil 3D. I'm just waiting for the model to update. Oh, sorry, it's already done it. Create, update, Civil 3D profiles. And then once the form pops up, I don't actually have to do anything unless I've created new profiles. I'll click Create, Update, Profile Views. And we should see this one. There we go, update. Now, the great thing is I can actually do the opposite. So if you are inclined to use the Civil 3D vertical design tools, you can edit the Civil 3D vertical design yourself and then actually pass that using this tool back to Civil Site Design. Update from Civil 3D. And what we should find is that this should then update, which it has done. Okay, so there is already the first connection with Civil 3D and showing you how those two things can connect together. One of the crucial things with Civil Site Design, as I've kind of highlighted, is the fact that you can connect roads together and they will talk to each other, allowing you to form a connection, an intersection, and then curb returns. And again, just putting curb returns. This could be between an existing road. This could be between a rural road to a driveway. It could be any number of different combinations. But crucially for me, I'm just going to show you here because it's a little bit cleaner. Could show you in any number of different scenarios. I'm going to just highlight a tool here called the Intersection Manager, which is just found here, which again is only found on the 25.1 release. It does offer some extra tools, but crucially, all the existing tools to manage this intersection are also still available to users. But if I click on the intersection tool here and pick, this is giving me information about this intersection. Now, what I'm going to do is, because I know this is going to happen, I'm going to turn off this aerial image. I'm sure we all know what happens when you find draw order on an aerial image just constantly getting in the way. So I've turned the aerial image off just for ease. The curb return in here is highlighted, so I can go in and start to say, well, actually, do you know what? I'd like to change this right-hand side radius to something else. The tool that users generally use is this one here, which is called Edit Curb Return. So there's nothing new, but I can come in here, I can change the value. I can also use different compound arrangements if I want something a bit more detailed. However, I'm just going to just change this to 7.5, click on Apply, and the software will go ahead and now change that radius. It's also rebuilding the model, and the model's for me in the background, which is why I might just need to do a bit of a refresh there on the line work. There we go. Just a quick regen. Also, one of the great things that we've added in here is the ability to create what we call a saddle. You might have different terminology for this, but at the moment, the edge of bitumen of the design is being pushed all the way through the intersection. If you want to remove this, if we go Edit, remove main road edge, what we should see now is the software is going to go ahead. It will remove the edge and then go and update the two models for me, which is now done. I'll just need to do a quick regen there to refresh the line work. There we go. So this is something that you couldn't, well, you could do, but it was very, very tricky with variations in any current commercial release of civil site design, whereas that's now much cleaner and easier for our user base. Now, that's the curb returns, very briefly. And the intersection. There's just one other sort of what we call network string, dynamic string I want to show you, which is the cul-de-sac. I'm sure for many of you, if you've used Civil 3D, you've watched videos on how to do the cul-de-sac, whereas I'll be honest with you, is an absolute piece of cake. And certainly with respect to design, the vertical design, much more logical. So I'm just going to very quickly show you how we build a cul-de-sac with civil site design. And all we require is the fact that you would have a road, in my case, this is this road here, up to the point where the cul-de-sac would terminate. So I'm going to create this cul-de-sac, call it CDS, not CSD, Civil Site Design. CDS for cul-de-sac. I'm going to pick my road here. You can see what I mean, by the way. This is a whistle-stop tour. I mean, I'm really not hanging around here on showing you some of the things we can do. But as I said, the idea is that we're building these things up quickly so I can spend more time focusing on the design rather than how do I build a cul-de-sac and get it in the drawing so I can then work with it. Now, the numbers I've got in here are 20.75, 8.75. I know these off by heart because that's just what they are. We build the Civil 3D alignment. I can now edit the Civil 3D alignment. So I decide, well, actually, that radius needs to be 7. Create, update the alignment. You can see how that's made that a lot smaller. These graphics over here really help people understand what the numbers represent in this particular form. These graphics appear all over the place as well in our software. And just a quick side note, this button here. If you ever see that button, that sends you to a playlist on our YouTube channel all about this particular feature or function. I'm going to click on Create Update String. So the alignment's in play. I now want the software to go ahead and build using that particular alignment geometry, which it's now going to do, as you can see there. Still going to just do a quick regen here, just to make sure that the graphics are updating. And I'm going to go close. So it is done. It is literally RE for regen here to update. So we'll just have a quick look at Model Viewer. I haven't done anything with Model Viewer other than literally open it up. The software is designed to just display what you've told it to display. Now, if I right click on here, I've got all sorts of functions. The water drop is gold. I should actually show you the water drop in civil site design in the plan, but the water drop's really good. Close this down. Let me just show you this. This is not something I plan to do, but when I click on the part of this, the contour here, go water drop, we actually give you a live, what we call a jig. So this is live. I don't have to click. If I do click, it will lock it in place and I can actually update them to my design. But yeah, this is a great way of just being able to see where the where your runoff will end up. All right. Couple of things then before we look at pipes. The next one is going to be cross-section editing. It's all very well applying a template in here, but crucially, how do I make changes to that template? I'm actually going to be putting in a layback just in here, just to show you how this works. When we right-click on Eyelet Street, we've got an option called the cross-section viewer. I'm going to open up the cross-section viewer. This is a live cross-section, and in conjunction with the vertical design, I'm able to get a live cross-section. In fact, I can open up multiple live cross-sections showing this part of the project. So I'm just going to just move. Can you see I'm just making changes to the vertical design and the center line's updating? That alone is incredibly helpful. So I'm going to build a corridor to create section views to now see what's going on in cross-section world, because I can open up multiple cross-sections just by holding shift. I can open up and see as many as I want whilst I'm in the middle of my design. Now, the benefit for this is that I can then start to apply what we call design variations. So what's already happened here is when we built this, this road, Project Assist actually did some work for us, and it actually, I told it that the alignment on the left, which is this one here, and the alignment on the right need to be used for the horizontal control of the edge of my design. And if we head to this form here, which is called the design data form, those variations were applied on our behalf. Take the left edge of bitumen. That's why the code is so important in the template. Take the code, match it onto the alignment called Eyelet Street left edge of bitumen, and simply force it using the slope that it's on there at the moment. I'm going to show you just one variation which we added in V25, which is the ability to force a layback shape in here. So I'm going to double click on variations. By the way, this form is not just for changing the conditions around the codes on your template. This is also where you can do things like change a template, have multiple different templates along your string, apply table drains, batters, maybe have batter overrides, matching to alignments. There's a lot of things you can do in this one form. Again, the time I've got, very little time to show you. These were introduced in version 25. So if you haven't seen version 25, any of the civil site design users in the room, these are, think of these as custom variations that we as a team have developed and will continue to develop. Benching, for example, offset center lines, battering to any surface on any side. Layback crossing, add variation. I'm actually going to go ahead and add here a point where I want the software to start my layback, which is going to be roughly here. And I'm going to copy this number and click OK. So it's crucial I have what we call a sample or a section at the start point of my driveway layback. I'm going to pop in an end chainage of 1,000. The software is going to calculate the layback for me in a second. I'm going to put in a layback width of 0.6, and I'm going to be putting in a 900 width for the taper. The crossing, I'm going to make 7.6, and the end taper will be 0.9. The footpath, traditionally when people have used our variations in the past, they had to do a bit of work to stop this footpath from moving, whereas we've actually got some controls for that. So I'm actually going to say keep the footpath where it is and keep it at its current level. I'm going to click Add Update. Before I do, in fact, I'll do that first and then recalculate. So you may have seen in the background there in the drawing, if I just hit Auto Model down here, the software has actually gone in and now applied. Just got some ghosting. Oh no, it's all good. Might just have to do another regen. There we go. It's now gone and applied the layback, but crucially kept the footpath where it is. Just to show you how this looks, what I'm going to do is reopen the cross-section window, click the picker tool, click in here. And this is now showing you, yes, we've got quite a steep slope there to my footpath. Maybe I decide, well, actually, I want to put 30mm lip on the, just on this particular location. Add Update, recalculate. You can actually already see that recalculate button is very important. It means that it basically goes ahead and resamples essentially resamples with our extra sampling. It's now popped in that layback. So very, very useful single variation that used to take about 6 variations, in fact 9, if you wanted to do the footpath to manage. And now we can build these. And I've already had one user, for example, come to me and say, we'd like to do something different with the benching. Please, can we adapt it? And we're able to adapt it for that user's particular requirements. So look, we've been building and sort of having a bit of a play with the vertical design, with the cross section, with the strings, how everything's connected together. One thing we'll just very quickly do is look at the subgrade model. So the subgrade model, we could have again presented within a few seconds of having put this road string and this design together, or these road strings, network strings together, including, by the way, if we designed this car park, which we can also do with civil site design, just using separate strings, we're able to build a really, really good subgrade model. I'm going to show you how very easy this is to use, and mention a really good resource that we've got. This works a bit like Model Viewer, except you're able to go in and cherry pick the bits that you do and do not want to see. I'm going to go create submodel. I'm going to leave everything as it is out of the box. Okay, in fact, I'm going to go and pick my design model here, which includes absolutely everything, and simply click OK. So this is what you're going to get out of the box, I'd say 90% of the time with the Subgrade Model Manager. We'll just let that load up. There's a bit of processing to do here, but also I'm trying to present via Zoom. So let's have a quick look. There's my layback. Okay, there's the footpath behind. This is a really good environment to work in, because if there's any part of this I don't want to see or don't want to be included, I can simply click on it and omit. It's a pickable area. Now, if you want to know more about this, I will mention our YouTube channel at the end, but the YouTube channel has a webinar which sort of gives you a fairly in-depth overview of how the Subgrade Model Manager can be operated. But then there's a really nice little playlist to accompany it, which kind of breaks down all the different components of how you can manage your subgrade models. Crucially, this is giving me a surface of the underside of my design. That's what I want. I want this surface because maybe I want to undertake a bulk earthworks calculation. I want to pass this to Civil 3D, whatever I want to do with it. It's giving me a live surface, which crucially I can do something with, rather than it being a static sort of visualization tool. It's entirely dynamic. I actually got through this a little bit quicker than I thought. I was trying to make sure I didn't run out of time, but I'm probably bang on time, I think, at the moment. Let's just wait for the Subgrade Model Manager to pop down. I guess the last thing to mention is amongst all the things I haven't been able to show you today, and there are a lot, the next sort of big segment of the software is the pipes. Now, I do have to operate, currently I'm just operating the pipes through the ribbon, okay? I have a couple of service pipes that I've already pre-created to give a bit of context to pipe crossings and whatnot a little bit later on. I'm just going to use Toolspace. And this is where things get nice, as I can just turn things on and off. Maybe I want to see the triangulation of my subgrade surface. Maybe I don't. Maybe I want to turn that off. Maybe I want to turn off the contours. We'll talk about some of those export features you may have spotted a little bit later on. Let's turn the contours off for this as well. So this Toolspace environment offers pretty much just at your fingertips, display editing and tool editing. Everything's contextual. Okay. There is also lots of sneaky extra features which I haven't got time to show you for V25 for our next release. But crucially, though, this is where we look at the pipe. So I'm going to be turning on a layer, which I already have created. Just again, save a bit of time. This is a real job. So this job came from one of our customers. And all I've done is I've taken the polylines that they had in their project, and essentially I'm going to use these for the purposes of their drainage design to form something in the project. Now, we have an inbuilt model, calculation engine. So we've got rationale method in there at the moment. We can also export what we're going to be doing in here. Often we don't have time to do it, but we can pass that to Watercom drains for analysis, and then provide it back to us for the purposes of, say, long section plotting, which is having had the pain of having to export a DXF from drains and manually edit it to get the long sections to look how I want them to look. This was an absolute godsend. So very, very briefly, I'll just mention what we have in the background here. So it builds some context to what I'm going to be doing very shortly. But we have a standard library of things like pipe tables, box section tables. We have a standard library of rainfall data, which you can bring in. You can bring in your own rainfall data from the BOM website. We have pit tables, standard pits. All of it is editable, and we would assume that most users would look to develop their own sort of standard library or standard default settings for their particular projects. But out of the box, we give you something to start with. We've also got a sewer module, which is a line and level tool to work in conjunction with house connections. And we've got services, which are essentially sort of the base level pipe sort of starting point, where you can just put a pipe in with a size and assign it some elevations, inverts, obverts, etc. So we're going to go up to drainage objects, and we're going to basically go and pick a layer. And this layer is, as I said, polylines that I've already drawn, and all I want to do is for the software to connect the vertices of these together with pits and pipes. I'm going to use all objects on selected layer. Yes. Just going to cycle through this. And the software has now gone ahead and built that for me. So this is just a schematic layout. Okay, the fact that there's numbering in there is meaningless at the moment. Those polylines that were used originally, they're no longer used, but I've got a suite of tools to now edit. I'm actually going to shortcut this process and build a network using this button up here. Tell it where the downstream end of this system is. Call it network. We're going to go edit structure just to show you that this is a really good set of tools. So what we're trying to do here is build something for you which you can pretty much plot straight from scratch. Okay. I'm able to go in and start to use our tools. I don't use CAD to move our pits and pipes around, but I'm able to use our tools now to basically lock this design into a position where I want it to be. If you are using civil site design for your drainage design and you want to assign it flows, we have up the top here catchment areas, and we also have drains catchments. The reason why we have drains catchments is because those catchments, when we export this model to Watercom drains, will be collected by drains and used by drains, okay? Whereas our standard catchment isn't. So if I know that this design is going to be passed over to Watercom drains for analysis over there, I can actually build them in here. And this is a lot quicker, I can assure you. So if I click on drains catchments, we'll just click on a pit down here. In fact, we'll click on one of these over here, right in the middle of the building. You can see, for those of you that have used Watercom drains, this is actually a very similar process. I'm not going to be running the export-import process for time, but if that's something you're interested in seeing at a later date, when we can obviously be showing you that. But essentially, I can apply this catchment. Our software will use that catchment, but crucially, drains will also read it on your behalf and use it, which is a lot quicker than doing it through just through drains. I'm just going to pop in one catchment for speed here, just one of our standard ones, and put something at the top of the system here, and then cat-1. Then just talk about, I'm going to put a hectare in at the top, C factor of 0.6 and TC of 5. Click OK. The software is going to use this as part of its analysis. So it's already beginning to resize the pipes on my behalf. And to show you that, I'm going to open up the vertical grading editor. This shows me the vertical design of my pipe, as you can see, all the way through to the downstream end. Before I do that, I should have just done one thing, which was told it to use the design model for the design elements of our surface, for our network, which is this one here. You'll see the difference in a second. When I open up the vertical grading editor, you'll see. Here we go. So you actually see as I'm crossing the road through here. So what is this giving us? It's giving us the flow value from the top of the pipe down here. If I right click on the pipe, it will tell me the flow, whole load of reportable information. It will show me that it's sized the pipe to be a 300. I can override this. So if I decide it needs to be a 375, that will now become a 375 pipe. Right clicking further down the system, you can see I'm able to make changes to things like inverts, change the drops, change the slopes of the pipe. I can also see pipes that also happen to be crossing as part of this design, okay? And they'll flag in a different color if they are within a particular zone, i.e. they are potential for a clash. just going to close this down. The great thing is, as I'm designing, and by the way, you are literally getting a taster of this at the moment. As I said, the pipes module, we could show you this for a whole hour, just tinkering around, showing you bits and pieces. If I just head to the Objects tab, Pipe Networks, I'm just going to leave this all on and just make sure that these pipe networks here, I'm going to make this red, and this one here, these are my services. I'm going to put these in 2 different colors, and we'll leave the main drainage one as blue. And ideally, you'd see transparency. So this little button down here gives me some transparency within civil site design. Let's give this a second to register that I've clicked it. There we go. And there we go. So that is my... So there's no analysis going on here as such, but I'm getting a pretty good realistic 3D representation of my pipes. You can obviously see there that, yes, that small service that I put in there, wouldn't necessarily have seen that in any other environment than this one, is actually slicing through the back of my boundary code on my batter. Okay, so really nice way of just being able to visually see what's going on with your design. Now, as far as delivering this design goes, very quickly, we've got the long sections. So the long sections for this were and have always been very, very good. The speed at which we can, I'm just going to put some line numbering on here, would have been helpful. The speed at which we can develop the long sections, and this goes if you're using Watercom drains, by the way. If you're using Watercom drains, the idea is that when you import your design or you update your analysis in drains and you provide it back to us, we will plot your HGL for you. We'll also update your pipe sizes based on what it is that you've done in drains. Here we go. So this is the default output. Now, my plan was to kind of talk about the deliverables at the end of this webinar. So I am just going to very quickly now talk about the deliverables from civil site design in respect of things like production and plan. So I'm going to come in here. Just firstly mention, if you want to build a civil 3D pipe network, maybe you want to pass this to infra drainage, we can click on civil 3D network. We have what's known as a conversion file, and that conversion file is a DWT file that will contain all your parts lists, okay? And crucially, our parts lists that we use in civil site design, the pipes, classes, etc., we have to know what part you would like to replace those with when we build a civil 3D pipe network for you. So that's what that this particular option is about. I'm going to pick the NS for these two and click Create Pipe Network. So it's important your DWT file correspondent is correctly set up. I'm just going to quickly pop over here and just run this. So again, this is another part of being able to pass this information. I think I've used the road. Yes, I have. I've used the road profile plotting for the pipes there, but that's okay. You can get the general idea here to what's going on. I've also got a civil 3D pipe network representing what I've just designed. I'll just use our old friend Object Viewer, which, by the way, hasn't changed. This is the same tool that was in Land Development Desktop. So it's the same tool. It's never been updated. I know that they are looking at some new things, but this is really what we're looking to develop for you, is that civil 3D pipe network. A couple of other things that we can also deliver. I guess it was a nice segue to talk about the pipes and delivering the pipe design as a civil 3D pipe network, but crucially, with the rest of the design and the model, civil site design in version 25 that was out in May has some really excellent bells and whistles in respect of surface export. We can export our design surface here to any number of formats, 12DA, DWG, DXF, etc., straight through this environment here. We've also got the option to export a civil 3D surface directly into the drawing. So if you do want your design to update to a civil 3D surface, we can click OK here. And now I have a civil 3D surface being created. And again, I'll just use our good friend Object Viewer, even though I don't need to see it in Object Viewer. I've just designed it in Civil Site Design. I could see this in Model Viewer, but there is our civil 3D surface. That will be sitting in our civil 3D tool space. We've also got the option to export the model. So this is the line work of our design. So if we had car parks, basins, etc., this would all be included, but we can export the design to a DWG is 3D polylines, 2D polylines, etc. Great for things like machine control. Really, really helpful. We also have the option through Model Viewer, and again, just for, I guess, for time, is the option to export the design as IFC 4.3. Okay, and that's a very, very, and we actually have the option for the subgrade model as well to export that as an IFC file. So it's just one of the many different ways that we can integrate, not just with Civil 3D, but obviously offer digital copies of your model in different formats. One of the, I guess, the party pieces for us was always the ability to just get the delivery of this content out quickly. So for example, if I want road 1 as a long section, I just go plot long section. And using the default style, and here we're just going to go and pick a default style. One of ours out of the box. This is the kind of presentation I'm being given. Yes, you can use the Civil 3D profile views if you want to, but this is what I'm getting. So this is entirely editable to an extent where you can change things like layers, colors, sizes, etc. But out of the box, we're giving you something that requires really very little effort once it's been set up. We've also got the option to plot cross sections. So we're going to go and grab road 1 here, have a look at the same thing. So again, this is out of the box cross-section plotting with civil site design. Very, very fast, very easy to go and cherry pick the cross sections we want, add in extra pieces of information that we may or may not want. Something that I will mention, we've got a volume report here, which will give us volumes of any part of our string design, but I'm just going to highlight something that's coming in version 25.1, which is the section volumes. And this is the next level in respect of sectional volume calculations for civil site design. As you'll see, once it's loaded, just bear with me 1 second. For those of you that are sort of hanging on in respect of time, I've got one more thing to show you, which will be the corridor after this, and then we'll be looking to end. This is the new sectional volumes form. So on road 1, for example, here, chain is 20. This is the type of reporting you'll now get for your design. Okay, I might just go to settings here and just toggle off the polygons. This is showing me the cut and fill of my design live through subgrade polygons and validating the numbers for me. So this is something that you'll see in a forthcoming release, but certainly is the next level in respect of volume calculation design, including this little thing here, which is our viewer. This is what we're calling the multi-section viewer. So if you want to see all of your cross sections of your design in one environment, this is where you can do it. Okay, you can actually get that reporting information live at your fingertips, all through one continuous window. So really, the last thing I want to show you is developing a corridor. And I wish I had a poll here to say who uses and creates corridors, because this was the painful part for me, is developing the corridor. But I will show you, in fact, I'll do it through Toolspace here, the fact that we can build a corridor model for you on your behalf. And I guess the whole point of this is, well, you can keep designing with civil site design, which is incredibly quick and nimble, and then produce the sort of slightly more onerous part, which is the corridor, by using our corridor exchange tool. So all that we require you to do, and you can use one of the sort of default settings as part of our software, is essentially, it's a bit like the conversion file we looked at with the pipes. You essentially say what parts of your template correspond to what links and points on your assemblies. And we'll actually build these for you. I'm going to just show you this. This is one of those things where people, I'll be honest with you, many people tend to go, I probably don't need a corridor at this point. I've got everything I need. But we're going to go create corridor. It will now build a road corridor model of all of our roads and curb returns and cul-de-sac in the project for us. And as you'll see very shortly, it's also, there's a lot of work it's got to do. If you imagine doing this manually, if you're a Civil 3D user, it's also going to be building, and I'll put them over here, the assemblies for us, sub-assemblies for us. You can see it's working away on that corridor. I'd like to obviously just mention the fact that the speed at which we've been doing everything with civil site design and the work that would be involved with editing one part of the profile that was connected to this whole corridor, what would be happening with regards to processing it. Now we have a full multi-baseline editable corridor, which we can continually sync to. sync corridor, so I can keep having that corridor synced to and updated. It is at the moment sort of static. Okay, I do need to run that sync, but essentially that's what the software is doing on our behalf and building this for us. Having used the software in anger and having been an ex-Civil 3D user, I never needed this again. But it's crucial that we do have it for those people that do want that corridor. Maybe you're wanting to pass this to Revit or to InfraWorks, then it's an incredibly important part of your workflow, and I suppose that in inverted commas, the BIM workflow process. That's all I had time to show you, and I appreciate there was a lot that I've shown you in the course of what just over 50 minutes there. There is a lot, and there is a lot more to the software. Ultimately, my goal was to show you how we can streamline a lot of those processes which are very, very maybe either slow or cumbersome with using just general Civil 3D on its own. But also show you how we can round trip and provide you back with relevant Civil 3D content that you can either deal with within your project or pass on to other platforms. On that, I'm now going to pass back over to my colleague, Ben. I think we're going to be just finishing off with our sort of final slide.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Jonathan. That was fantastic. Certainly packed plenty into that 60 minutes or a little over 60 minutes. And I certainly appreciate everybody for giving us a few extra minutes of their time. A couple of things just on this last slide. So look, if you did want to know anything more, as Jonathan said, there were plenty of features and functions that weren't shown today. We very much just skimmed the surface. So if you did want to see any more, there's an email address there you can use to get in contact with us. Jonathan mentioned once or twice our extensive YouTube channel that has plenty of content there available for you. So please feel free to visit that as well. And then that last little box there, look, we certainly appreciate everybody's feedback on all of our presentations. So you can use the QR code there, or I think it might pop up when you close out of this webinar. Just ask a couple of questions. If you can just please give us an extra 30 seconds of your time. We very much do use that feedback to direct us where to go next in terms of improving our presentations and also what topics we'd like to present. So just to close off, big thank you to Jonathan. He worked hard to get as much out as he did today. So very big thank you to Jonathan, and thank you everybody else once again for giving us 70 minutes of your time this afternoon. And I wish you all a good rest of the afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Ben.